arguments to bring also optimism into this debate.
Well, thank you very much. Just one sentence from Mr. Hudak.
Maybe two sentences,
Two.
but very brief. Very brief.
We have the lady
on this point,
waiting.
because I think it's really very important issue for this discussion and overall, which is the question mark whether move towards environmentally friendly, climate-related energy type of production, whether it's consistent with increasing the competitiveness of the European economy. Because we are now maybe in the second phase of what Mr. Topolánek described in terms of the climate change type of energy, especially in terms of the introduction of renewables, where we are in the stage of some kind of paranoia or rather bad feelings, because all of us, we are suffering from the cost of renewables in our energy mix. And also in Slovakia, we have to de facto subsidize the introduction of renewables. But I believe this is just the second phase, which will move into a new phase. And this is exactly what Maroš mentioned. This is the fact that there is an overall push for cleaner energy, for a cleaner environment, which is global. Even rich Chinese and middle-income Chinese are moving out of China because they want to live in cleaner environments. So there is a lot of push in this direction. There are technologies which are introduced and which are making the production of renewable energy sources much cheaper. And I think Europe was always different from the other parts of the world by being able to capture the new innovations, new technologies, and to be the leader. Just one point I want to mention is that while we are doing this, and this is, I think, the right process to move towards the clean energy, to look at the energy from the point of view of climate change, we also have to be, of course, sensitive to the impact on economy and on the prices. And one of the issues which is important for Slovakia is that the move towards, for example, the goal of 40% reduction of CO2 by 2030, which is the overall goal for the EU, from our point of view, should be neutral in terms of the types of clean energy being used. So for us, it means that our national energy mix, which includes a very big portion of nuclear energy and nuclear production, should be kept, and we believe that this is also contribution to the clean energy production.
Thank you, Mr. Hudak. Mr. Šefčovič already introduced the relationships and with the US in the area of standardization of electric cars, smart grids, and so on. So, Robin Dunnigan, what is your take from US point of view about the energy union and energy security of the European Union and the neighboring states? Because we know that from your point of view, you have also great interest in the stability of Ukraine and also other neighboring areas.
Thank you, and thank you for actually including a U.S. official in today's conference and to the organizers. One of the questions is, why do you have an American up here on the stage talking about European Union energy security? And I have to say, I'm actually from our foreign ministry. The State Department's our foreign ministry, and we're the only foreign ministry in the world that has an entire bureau, 100 people, dedicated to energy policy. And the reason for that is a recognition of the essential interconnection between energy policy and our national security. Really, it centers around a trifecta of interests: our economic growth, our geopolitical security, and our climate goals. Energy policy is essential to all three of those national security objectives. And the energy security of our partners, and especially here in Europe, is equally important to our national security. So we have worked hand in hand with the European Union and bilaterally with member states for years. Before the Energy Union, even starting back in the early 90s on the Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan oil pipeline to support diversification. As far as the Energy Union, we applaud the efforts of the Vice President and the Commission on the Energy Union strategy and plan. In fact, I joined the Vice President last February in Latvia when the Energy Union proposal was launched. When you look at the essence of what's proposed in the Energy Union, diversification of fuel types, sources, and routes, innovation, energy efficiency, cohesion and integration of infrastructure, but also of policy. This is really the core to energy security. The core diversification is absolutely essential. And it doesn't just mean oil and gas pipelines. It means electricity markets. It means integrating renewables onto your grid in a way that works. It means cohesion of regulatory policies. So we're very big supporters of the Energy Union strategy, and through the US-EU Energy Council, we've also worked closely with our partners, starting with the Vice President, on how do you translate this into action? And the work of the Commission to get the priority list of infrastructure projects down from 230 or 40 to 14 or 10 real priority infrastructure projects was an important undertaking, and the agreement of countries to a list that didn't include them was essential. So we've also advocated, there's a lot of talk about big mega pipeline projects, Turkish Stream, South Stream. There are small infrastructure projects that we can do, that can be done here, that will make all the difference. Interconnectors, important interconnectors, such as an interconnector between Greece and Bulgaria, the Southern Gas Corridor. United States, we don't have a single company investing in the Southern Gas Corridor, which will bring Caspian gas through Turkey into Europe. And yet we've been huge supporters of it because it will introduce non-Russian gas into a market and inject some competition. We've also supported the Baltic energy projects when Lithuania opened its LNG terminal a year ago. Hugely important. It's not a lot of gas coming in through that terminal, but it's allowed Lithuania to renegotiate its gas purchase contract with Gazprom. And competition is always a good thing for prices, for the consumer. We're also supporters of an LNG terminal off the coast, or a floating terminal off the coast of Croatia. Again, inject some competition and allow for a different source of gas to come into that region. So we're very big supporters of the Energy Union proposal, and we look forward to seeing that column of the to-dos continue to shrink, and applaud the EU for their efforts. If I could turn quickly to a couple of other things that were mentioned, starting with Nord Stream 2, or the Nord Stream expansion. I very much appreciate the comments of my colleagues up on the stage today, because the United States is very concerned about Nord Stream 2. And maybe I can basket the concerns into two baskets. The first is regarding Ukraine. There are a lot of people in this room, and just about everybody on this stage has worked very hard over the last couple of years to support Ukraine. Slovakia, through its reverse flow of natural gas into Ukraine, has been absolutely critical to Ukraine getting through last winter and this winter. The EBRD has just, and through Ricardo's personal work, a lot of work over the last year, has secured, among the many things the EBRD has done, it has secured a loan for $300 million to help Naftagaz purchase gas. The Vice President and the Commission worked tirelessly to get a gas agreement between Gazprom and Naftagaz. So a lot of work to support Ukraine. And you have to ask, why would you support Ukraine with one hand and strangle it with the other? And I think that's what Nord Stream 2, if it's built in a way that cuts off all gas transit through Ukraine, if that's the end result, $2 billion of revenue per year lost, that would be the end effect. So we are very concerned of that being one possible outcome of Nord Stream 2. The other basket goes back to this diversification of sources in Europe. There are a lot of possibilities. The Vice President mentioned new finds in the Eastern Mediterranean, off the coast of Egypt, Israel, and Cyprus. We have US LNG hitting the market, and I will get into that in a moment. So the LNG market is going to look very different in 5 years than it looks today. But all of these projects require a market in Europe to happen. Why are you as a developer going to, especially in today's price environment, going to be exploiting resources, natural gas resources in the Eastern Med, or the second phase of Shah Deniz, or really use LNG terminals in Western Europe, in Spain, or in Greece? If you're already getting another 55 BCM of Russian gas through a Nord Stream 2 expansion that's, locks in countries to long-term contracts from the same supplier. So I think Nord Stream 2 actually threatens not only Ukraine's viability and their resources, but is a risk to real diversification in Europe, especially Central and Southeastern Europe. Finally, I think I have to touch just on two more things. One is the U.S. oil and gas exports. The Vice President mentioned it. It's one of the questions I'm most frequently asked in Europe. When is the United States going to open its exports of liquefied natural gas to Europe. And I think, as the Vice President found in the United States, the oil question is something that's being hotly debated in our Congress and not something that I'm going to resolve at my pay grade. But talking about gas, every molecule of LNG that we are exporting over the next 5 years, and we haven't started yet, but it will start to hit the market in early 2016, has been approved for the export to free trade agreement countries and non-free trade agreement countries. So all of the LNG that the United States will be putting on the market, and it could be up over 100 BCM of gas, has been approved for export to anywhere in the world, any customer. And ultimately, commercial concerns will drive where that LNG goes. But our LNG that we'll be exporting can go to Europe. And in fact, a lot of European suppliers are already negotiating with US companies. The question is, it doesn't matter how much LNG we're putting onto global markets or how much we're exporting to Europe. If once it gets to Europe, it can't move to any point in Europe from the place it got to, the place it entered. And again, that goes back to this project-based approach, finishing interconnectors, making a really viable natural gas market here. And finally, turning to energy efficiency, renewables, the Prime Minister mentioned, is economic growth and meeting our climate goals, are they not compatible? Can you do both? And we believe absolutely you can. I spent a couple of weeks recently in Silicon Valley, the technological heart of the United States. And I have to tell you, there's nobody in Silicon Valley that doesn't think there's money to be made and economic growth opportunities in renewable energy, in energy efficiency programs, in smart grid technology, in battery technology. In fact, companies in Silicon Valley look to the East Coast where the policymakers are and think that we are far behind the times talking about big pipeline infrastructure. I mean, they are busy working at the technologies that are really going to drive growth. In the solar industry in the United States, last year we added jobs 10 times more quickly than in any other industry or than the industries as a whole. So I think the International Energy Agency estimates that between now and 2050, $25 trillion worth of investment will be put into power markets globally. That's a huge opportunity. And I think that integrating renewables, using new grid technologies, looking at battery technology, these are industries that really can drive growth and good competitive jobs. So, thanks.
Well, thank you very much also for presenting to us